That's what it means to fit. It's not something he is doing. He is sanctifying us. He is changing us, to be sure. But this fittedness for heaven is something that he has already accomplished in our lives. We are being recreated to be part of God's kingdom of light. Verse 12. This is the end of verse 12. The inheritance of the saints of light. Again, I think some of this light, dark imagery that we see in the New Testament is very significant. It's very significant as Paul and his associates are dealing with some of the darkness of the false teaching there in Asia Minor. He's dealing with some very dark and secret things, and Paul says, listen, we're on our way to a kingdom of light. We are lights that shine out in the darkness. We're not hidden. We're not secret. We are out there shining to show people the way to access, to understand God. How they can also share in this pleroma, this relationship with God through Christ. So we're already fit to be part of the kingdom, the inheritance of the saints in light. Verse 13, he rescued us, and I think we have a little note about the word apolatrios. This means to set something free, to release, to deliver, and we have all kinds of places where this word is used of what Christ and what God has done for us, to set us free, to release us. What have we been released from? From the domain of darkness. Again, this light, dark imagery. The authority of darkness. We may still be in the presence, we certainly feel like we are in the presence of darkness as it surrounds us and attempts to engulf us, but it no longer has authority over us. We have been released from its authority, and now we have the authority of the presence and the Spirit of God. We have been released from that authority, which means we don't have to follow the dictates of evil. When the kingdom of evil says, hey, you need to do this because it's evil and sinful and fun, we say, no, I don't. Because I don't belong to that kingdom anymore. I don't recognize your authority anymore. I have a new authority that I recognize, and it is the authority of Christ and the kingdom of light. The phrase then he talks about, we've been rescued from that domain, transferred into the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption. And he says, he has kind of this interesting phrase, redemption. What is redemption? It is the remission of sins, the forgiveness of sins. And one commentator that knows more than I ever will had this to say, in terms of closely juxtaposing the idea of redemption and forgiveness. Apparently, some strains of thought in the first century were trying to separate this. This is what this commentator says. It is possible that the false teachers in Colossae, like those of a later period, to whom Irenaeus, an early church father, to whom he referred, they would distinguish between the remission of sin as the first stage received in baptism and redemption as the final stage coming from the divine Christ. So you have remission when you became baptized, you have redemption when Christ came back, and Paul is trying to say, no, this is all part of the same package. You're made fit to enter the kingdom of light, you've been redeemed, you've been forgiven of your sin. We have to, as the hymn says, we have to keep going back to that fount. We have to keep going back to ask for forgiveness of sins. But we have been redeemed, freed, and liberated from that kingdom of darkness and from that weight of our sin and our guilt. And after this, starting in verse 15, he will launch into just a spectacular discussion of Christ. We will save that for next week. I just kind of wanted to end, I was thinking, redemption, redeem, in terms of understanding the basis, the establishment of the faith. We don't use the term redeem very often, but a couple of years ago we were, and then recently we took a group of kids to a laser tag place. You know, you shoot laser tags, you shoot each other, and it's really fun. They love teaming up on me. Oh, shoot Pastor Matt. But then there's all these little games, and you play the games, and the tickets get, that spits out the tickets, and you go to what they call a redemption counter, where you redeem prizes. And I thought, isn't that fascinating? As infrequently as we use this kind of terminology, redemption, redeem, it sounds so kind of spiritually. But here they have this redemption counter. you redeem these prizes. Here you have prizes that were put on this shelf, and frankly, they will spend the rest of their life in trinket Hades if some little kid doesn't come and remove them from a position essentially of uselessness. They're going to stay on that shelf. So the kid brings his tickets that he has earned by his own work, and he gives them to the man. And the man takes it, and he takes that trinket off the shelf that the child has selected. Now, I'm standing next to the kids, and they're picking stuff. I have no idea why they pick this or that or the other. It's not what I would pick. But they have a reason for picking this. It's not because it's the best thing or the brightest thing or the most expensive thing. It's because they want that thing. And they redeem it off the shelf and bring it from their position of uselessness into a position of usefulness in ownership, of being owned by that child. Because of the work of the child, not for any virtue that that particular thing had to offer. And we say the child has redeemed the prize. It's fascinating. Because in the same way we're sitting up there on the shelf, bound to a certain destination, were it not for the intervention of God taking us off that shelf, because of the work that Christ has done, taking us to be His own. We are now owned by Him, servants of His. But being a servant doesn't mean a bad thing. It means now we have been transferred from a place of uselessness to a place of usefulness. As we serve, as we are owned, as we are enjoyed by God, and as we strive to serve Him in all we do. So Paul has exemplified the expressions of the faith, described the expansion of that faith, and explained the establishment, the basic doctrines upon which our faith is established. His adoption, His making us fit for heaven, His redemption of us, the forgiveness of sins. God has established our faith. It is now ours to consider how we can participate in the blossoming of that faith, in the bearing fruit of that faith, and in the increase of that faith in our own lives and in the lives of those that we come in contact with. I have a few minutes, I think, before we sing our closing hymn. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions or comments about anything we talked about this morning? Anything you'd like to add? Yes, ma'am.
I do. Your description of the Colossians and all of their gods and so forth makes them more like us than the people of Jerusalem or Judea who learned about, saw Christ and saw what He did, but they're learning about it now.
That's a really good point. The Colossians were in a very, what we might call, multicultural, pluralistic society. More so even than the Jews were of their day. They were more just, you're either in or you're an Arab. I mean, you're either one or the other. But that's a very good point. The Colossians are in a very, in fact, many of those places in Asia Minor, they're trade routes, people coming and going. They're in a very pluralistic society. We're in the same kind of a situation, dealing with a lot of error, being bombarded with a lot of error in terms of belief. So I think Paul focusing in on Christology, on how we live out our faith, is critical for us even today. Great point. Anything else? Any other comments or questions? All right. Darren?